on the agenda tonight is to pick the Charter Review Committee, and Mr. Turner alluded to the process we went through. After I thought about it, I think he was right. Where the selection is, you'll take one of your applicants that you got, and they're guaranteed to be on there, so that makes 10 of us. And the charter says we have to have 15. So all the rest of them we're going to put on the table and draw the rest of them. All we have is 9 applicants.
I have one.
I don't know whether somebody.
I have one more that already turned in a form, but didn't put on the list.
Okay, we'll use it. But if you pick out your favorite one out of all your application, I'm going to have Dominic pick them up, and those are guaranteed.
You should probably just write the name on a piece of paper and have it.
I haven't even seen
For the
these.
ones that are left over.
No, we just put it on the table and we'll draw.
But I just, that's what I'm saying.
Oh. Oh.
Do you need to take these from them?
Is that your favorite, Roger?
Yep.
All right, work your way on
My
down.
favorite, they're all good.
I know it's hard.
We know how many total applicants we got?
Kathleen, do you have a ballpark figure?
There was 8 with Melissa's, it's 9.
I had one.
Somebody else had one.
I had one, 10.
10.
Okay.
Anybody else that?
Did anybody else have any extras?
I sent all mine in.
Just pick one. These are guaranteed, but if we only
What
have.
if they have multiple the same person?
That's right, yeah.
Well, you can.
Like, I'm looking at them.
Is there more?
My number one choice?
Yes, I want your number one choice.
Okay.
Did you not put Julie Hooch in any of this?
Is there?
Yeah, I just gave her.
Just turned Julie.
Yeah.
Who gave her? Go back and ask what they want to do.
But I may have given, somebody else may have given her two.
We have 9 applicants? Yeah.
Yeah, 10. I think I had one that answered.
I don't know that this, I don't know that
Or
this is
11.
gonna accomplish.
Well, the charter says we have to have 15 people or up to.
Do we,
Is it up to 15 people or 15 people? 15.
I,
Just take all that are here.
It might,
They're like giving
Yeah.
them the same people.
it might make more sense to pull anyone who has an objection.
well, I got a question. Because quite frankly, I thought this was going to be a process meeting because I wasn't told to turn anybody's name. I know that we reached out to people to let them know, but I didn't know that we actually, because I would have reached out to somebody to actually get, that I'm going to appoint that I know, even though I do know a couple of these people, and they look like excellent applicants. I'm just saying process should come first. We should understand that, know exactly what would, is it essential that we appoint people tonight?
I thought we were told to, I thought we were gonna appoint people tonight. I thought that's what.
Yeah, I saw that, but my issue was, I had to ask about what the process was gonna be. I still don't know, like, when we got here, we would know, well, we would be appointing an individual, each council person. That was not stated as part of this process. I didn't know until just now, and what the mayor said was, you know, we're looking back to the past way that, the past way it was done is that other council people came in with the name that they wanted. They would appoint that person would be on the board as one of the voting members. The extraneous ones evidently would be, I guess a couple would be chosen to be on the board to fill it out because there were 15. I think we were looking at 18 because there were 9 of us and each one got 2.
The charter says 15.
Yeah, 15, but I think there was 18 total, so there were 3 there were 3 what are they? Alternate.
Yeah.
There were 3 alternates on the board. I'm sorry.
Jerry, can I respond?
Heidi?
Yeah, I would like to respond because, you know, I went out, very strongly recruited people. You never know whether people are really going to be interested until they apply. And here we have 9 or 10 people, and we still will need more. So I don't think we just bring names to council. We weren't going to just bring names. I would have brought 10, 15 names myself. It's the people that actually come through are the people that we know are most likely to actually serve. So there's probably going to be a way to recruit more people, if there's some people you have in mind, because we still will need at least 5 more people. And yeah, so I mean, this is a great start. It's great that we went out and talked to people. I can see that there's an effort, and you all know how hard it is to get people to serve.
Yeah,
Robbie, at the last meeting, you kind of set the rules, and I thought about it, and that's what we did
yeah.
in the past. And anybody that's been here 10 years more, I think will realize, if they think about it, they're going to say that's the way it was.
Yeah, and I agree with it. The only issue that I have was I didn't know at that time that that would be the accepted process. So the process had not really truly been established. Maybe I was out to lunch. Maybe I missed it. I thought I brought it up, but nobody said, well, this is the process then that we will implement. What was said was, it was kind of nebulous. I didn't know. Matter of fact, I talked to the clerk, and I asked her the other day, I said, what is the process then? Are we, because I haven't seen any of these names till I got here. We know I'm kind of out of the loop on a lot of stuff.
Robin, I got to interject. You kind of set the ground rules at the last meeting.
Yeah, but I didn't.
You didn't know of it? That you did, or what?
No, I didn't. We didn't adopt that.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did, and it's been past process. You said yourself.
Okay, then
Wait.
then
You
I'm
said
wrong.
yourself
Then I'm wrong.
That
I'll
one
accept
of your
that
favorite
then.
applicants would automatically be on there, and the others would be picked out of a drawing
Okay.
to make the 15.
I was unaware of that.
Well, read the minutes, because you said it.
Yeah, no, I know I said it. I just didn't know that we adopted
What's the
that.
holdup here?
I just didn't know that that's what we adopted. I said it, but I didn't know council
I think
voted on it.
History supports that. Gwen, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if we could, I'd like to make a motion that we accept these 9, and then if anybody would like to add any more to it, we still need several more, then it gives opportunity to reach out, but we need to act with an we need to have an application before we can accept them.
I'll second that. All right. Is there any discussion? Wait, Gwen, you have further discussion?
No, I'd like to hear Jeff's
Mike?
thought.
Well, these people already expressed interest in serving. It's sort of like, you know, we have a hard time filling things. I think that's a...
Well, we got 9 applicants.
Yeah, 9 applicants, that's,
there.
they're...
We got it.
Ken?
Ken?
10. It's
So we
just
gotta
not
come up with
printed in the
5 more.
list, but it's already been submitted,
Well-
it just wasn't printed.
Jack?
Well, one of these, we need to make sure that we know, one of these applicants is alternate only, so we still need 6, 7 more?
Barb?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wanted to just be an alternate.
No. Hey, Roger, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I wanna wait till after we vote on this one, and I want a point of order to the law director, so.
All right. Anybody else have any? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Roger, you had a comment?
Yeah, Hope, I know what the charter says, okay? But in the event that we don't get 15 electors willing to step forward to serve, then we can't ignore the people who have already said that we want to do it. So is there a mechanism for us to move forward?
Yes. I believe, we can't force people to serve on a commission that they don't want to serve on.
Right.
What we would have to do is, the quorum would still be 7, or 8. The quorum would still be 8, so it might be harder, you know, especially as summer comes along, that, you know, to get the 8 people to show up. But yes, as long as there's 9, we can go. As long as there's 8, we can go, but every one of them has to.
Has to be there.
Yes, every single
To get any
time.
work done.
Right.
I gotta remind you, are you done, Roger?
Yes.
I gotta remind you, it's time sensitive, because whatever recommendation that goes to the ballot, there's a certain time we have to get it there. So, the process is, how many we have, 9? 10? I'm sorry. We got 10 now, I guess you gotta beat the bushes and come up with 5 more people. And if we're not, I guess we have to go with what we got. All right, is there any more?
Yeah, Mr. Ailes, but do we want to put a time frame on this? Because like you said, November election, I mean, we have to have something.
I don't know how many days before the election.
August, maybe, something?
I
think it's August,
I
right?
honestly would like to have August be, and I know that this could be hard, July would be nice to have these, the recommendations to you.
By August.
Yes.
Okay.
But we need to have the amendments to the Board of Elections
Correct.
60 days before the general election. And if we have to double up on meetings, we can do that. We'll get it done. I
Right.
mean, I don't want to start in, May, but if we can get this done by the council meeting in 2 weeks, that would be great.
Yeah, I think we have to.
Yeah.
All right, and that, if not, then the process is not going to have the body of integrity it needs in terms of the timeliness of doing the work, the actual work. So
Yeah.
I say we need to move forward as quickly as we can on this.
Mike,
And we can add people as we go.
until we get 15.
If you would like to do that, yes.
Yeah, we could do.
Yes.
I gotta tell you, cities already having, or Stowe's already having their public meetings in that. So we're a little bit behind. Not much, but we're a little bit behind. Is there any more under that subject? All right, civil service language change. Catherine, please.
All righty. So, we're looking at, for the civil service language changes, 2 of the rules. The first one deals with the requirement that the examinations be posted in the Record Courier, and it also specifies some billboards in City Hall and Human Resource Office. And we just, at the Civil Service meeting, they approved rewording that. And if I may, thank you. The revision reads, the notice of competitive entrance examinations shall be given by posting notices on the city's website, on the city's bulletin boards, and in such places as deemed advisable not less than 2 weeks prior to the last day on which application shall be accepted. So it just removes the reference to posting in a newspaper and removes the specificity of where these should be posted. I can tell you that we, following those rules, we had to post one of a recent position in the Record Courier, and it was this long, 8 lines, and it costs over $500, and we got 0 responses from it. So really, it's time to move on and just remove that requirement, and that has been removed at the state level of recommendations as well. So, Heidi.
Yeah, do we post job openings on our web? I know we do, but I mean, do we accept the applications for these civil service types of positions, and then inform everyone when the exam will be? So there's really a longer period of.
Yeah, when the position is posted, it's generally posted with the date of the exam. And in the instructions for filling it out, it says, your first step is to complete this civil service application, submit it, and then the next step is the civil service exam. And the date is listed on the posting, but I also follow up with an email and say this is.
So follow-up question. So do we typically give more than a 2-week window for these very important positions?
I believe it depends on the position itself. This last one was a little bit over 2 weeks, I believe, and it was for secretarial and admin assistant. We have one now for a water treatment plant operator. That's actually going to be a 30-day posting, as well as some engineering and another water posting come up. Those are longer.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, the next one, I'm sorry, Hope, could I have that back, please? The next one deals with the eligibility lists. Once an exam is taken, those that pass the exam are put on an eligibility list. And there's just some wording that was confusing about the duration. What'll happen if, a eligibility list was posted, and for whatever reason, the appointing authority decided not to go with somebody on that list, they could go back to the same list instead of having another test for the position. And this just changes a little of the confusing wording and makes it, I think, a little more clear. It says a certified eligible list will expire 12 months from the date of record. Firefighter lists are valid for a period of 2 years per Ohio Revised Code 126.46. However, the civil service may use an expired certified list to fill a position of the same classification within the same appointing authority for which the list was created, and the Civil Service Commission may grant a 1-year extension for any eligible list that has not expired, and no eligible list will be granted for more than one extension. So, and that's how it would read now. It's just a little clearer than it was.
Further questions? Anybody from the audience has questions on that? Back to council. Gwen?
I'd like to move to approve with emergency.
And I'll second that.
Thank you.
We got multiple.
Oh, go ahead.
Ron?
Go, you guys can do it. I don't need to be.
Roger, okay. Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same. Thank you. Replacement of codified ordinance. Ms. Hope.
Thank you. This is basically a housekeeping item. Our American legal publisher will put together what they call replacement pages, and what those typically consist of are any state law changes in misdemeanors or traffic offenses, and then they'll also, sometimes, we've noticed some issues from here and there, but sometimes they'll also, as you pass, like, let's say that Bridget comes in and she wants to amend Title 13. It's not codified until we put it in the replacement pages. So that's what this packet is asking you to do for, what's the time period? Kathy, do you know?
Oh, it was from December 23 to February 19th of 2025.
Okay. So about a, gosh, year and a half?
Yeah, a little
Year
bit.
and a half time period.
Any questions? Oh, thank you.
So, this is a pretty long period. It just seems like this should be done on a more regular basis, and does the council always have to approve this?
Yes. Yes, you do. There were a few years when Amy was here that we did like 2 replacement pages a year, and it's been a while. And Bridget even brought it up that she noticed that on the city's website that things that she had, that council had passed, hadn't made them on there. So we are going to be, and Kathy's aware of this, we're going to be monitoring that situation more closely.
Okay, thank you.
Roger.
Yeah, Hope, is there any more expense to the city when we do that? If we do it like once a month even, or is that part of our?
Then we have to approve it.
You'd have to come to us to approve it. Is that why we have to approve it, because of the expense?
Every time we get replacement pages, I'm sure we do.
We do, yes, but it has not really been consistent.
Okay. I'm sure every time, because when they send us the replacement pages, they send us like, say, 50 bundles of, so yes, they charge us, and it's not going to be a consistent amount, because sometimes it might be 50 pages, and another time it might be 150.
Well, I'm not questioning
Yeah,
the expenditure of the dollars. I think that's real critical
Right.
to make sure that the information is accurate. And I was just curious about how they do that. So they will bill us then? Is that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And I can ask Kathy to reach out to them and see if they can do it on a more regular basis, like at least twice a year, I think would be,
Yeah,
maybe 3 times a year.
yeah, okay.
Further questions? Anybody from the audience have any questions? Seeing none, that council?
I'll move to approve with emergency.
I'll second.
Second by Jack, discussion, Jeff?
No.
Jack, anybody else? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same. Thank you. That's it for committee of whole. We're gonna move into, community development.
Yep, so we've got, Bridget is coming up with a warming center report.
Strange angle, I don't think I've ever seen anything.
Oops.
Yeah, so, as you remember, last year, or in December, I believe it was, we had Anne Marie Noble here from Shepherd's House. Her organization was already running the warming center, but Kent Council had wanted a focus and support funding to go to address persons that they're originating from Kent that might need such services. So we compiled the data since the warming center season has ended. And I'm going to go over key points of the memo, and then I've got a few other things I wanted to add. So there were 18 individuals originating from the city of Kent that were assisted through the program. Of the 18, 12 became guests at Shepherd House. So that means they're no longer unhoused, and they're receiving the supportive services that go along with it. Often when you're dealing with this transient population, you're dealing with a multitude of issues. It's not just the housing. So they help with getting them on food assistance, such as SNAP. Some of them need to be on SSDI. They work them through that process. Those that are able to seek employment, get job skills, and then they assist and partner with the Housing Authority to get vouchers for transitional or permanent supportive housing. The warming center assistance was provided for a total of 37 days. 2 days in December, both were night and day shelter. 25 dates in January, 19 were night shelter only, and 6 were night and day shelter. There were 10 dates in February, 5 were night shelter only, and 5 were night and day shelter. The rate that we agreed upon was $50 for the night only shelter and $250 for the day and night shelter. And the differential is that at night it's basically cot provided and bedding, but when they stay from night into day, they are provided 3 meals, a snack, they have laundry services, they are allowed to use the showers. So just for comparative purposes, I did look around at other shelters. This is actually a little around the low end. For example, the average shelter night that the city supports through CDBG at Miller, the emergency shelter, is $375 a night. So you know, this seemed like a reasonable, because we aren't doing exactly all the same supportive services when we're only providing shelter, but we are dealing with immediate needs. So this will help assist also with those indirect costs that they have, such as the utilities, additional staffing, especially when the normal Shepherd House does not have anyone in the facility between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. So because the day services are there, they did have to have staff. The total, if using those rates, was $17,650 at those rates. Council had committed $8,000. Now, I will say, as everyone knows, it was an extremely unusual winter. So for comparative purposes, I went back and looked at the previous winter. So in December, we had 2 dates that were below 20 degrees or below. January, there were 12, and in February, there were 9. So there were 23 days where the warming center would have been needed the winter before. So this was 14 days more this season because of the extreme weather conditions. There were some questions that came up about the homeless, so in the community. So it's a transient population, and we don't talk about them being specifically from Kent or specifically from, it's where were they originated? Where are we finding them and applying the assistance? So it's been around, I've been doing this work since '97, and it predates me. It's called a point in time, the POT. There's one date, it's in January. I don't know why they picked it, January 29th typically. It's late January, where they literally count everybody across the country. The POT, or the PIT is then the number, because you're dealing with a population that is very difficult to measure. They do count unsheltered and sheltered. So for Portage County, we are in what's called the balance of states, and COA Ohio, which is the Coalition on Housing and Homelessness in Ohio, runs those statistics for the balance of states. And in Portage County, they don't go down to the granular level when you're under balance of states. You only get actual municipality numbers if you are an urban city, such as Cleveland or an Akron. But in Portage County, for the POT, we don't have the numbers for 25 yet. But in 2024, there were 4 unsheltered and 75 sheltered. So 79 countywide. So that tells you just how transient the population is, right? Because we just assisted 18. So the number fluctuates and changes. So I guess the message I'm trying to convey is the 8,000 was a reasonable estimation. We had an excessive winter that we needed to provide additional services for. So I would think that, you know, while we could maybe provide additional assistance, what council did was noble, and it made a difference. So I can take some questions if anyone has any.
Questions from council? Does anyone from the audience have questions? Any comments from council? Yes, Heidi.
Yeah, it may be a question, actually. So we appropriated, or we provided $8,000, yet the price tag is much higher, so they have to absorb that cost from their other resources.
Right. And I will say that even before council made the initiative last year to support it, she was serving people that originated from Kent.
Correct.
So she will always do that. Anne Marie and Shepherd's House, that's their mission. But I do agree that because this year was a little more, it is something we can consider. I don't know if it's necessarily required to make it entirely whole, but additional. And I feel the 8,000 is a good benchmark each year, and then it can be evaluated as we move forward. Because you know, next winter could be like the previous winter, where there aren't as many dates, and that will completely cover it. Also, whether it's night into day makes a big difference, because if if the temperature's dropping just at night, you know, it's a lot less for them to manage. So.
Well, from my perspective, and here's my opinion, I feel like I might even make a motion, but I would like there to be a recommendation as to actually how much could we, looking at the budget, could we provide additional, because I would like to acknowledge that this was a rough winter, and that, you know, I'm very, very, very grateful for the fact that we have this program. Do other communities in Portage County also pay for people that originate from their communities?
That isn't information I was provided, so I couldn't answer that. I do know that there were other community persons that originated in other communities that were on the aggregate spreadsheet that I received, that I identified the Kent assistance from. So, but I do not know that question, answer to that question.
I guess I would like to ask that you come back with the recommendation for additional. I would vote for. We are not voting right now, correct? On anything?
This is actually
It's just a report.
Yeah, but if there was a motion today to appropriate additional funds, I think that could be done through a voice vote. Is that correct, Hope?
I would like to make that.
We've got other, can we just get, Roger had something he wanted to add before we get to that.
You know, I think the reason that you're here is I'd have to go back and read the minutes again, but I think we said that 8,000 was our first go with it, and then come back, with it. I think we now have data that suggests that that's not enough, and to me, it would seem realistic, Heidi, just to build on you a little bit. And again, I'll have to go back to the minutes, but I think we said that we would consider expanding that once we understood what the actual data was in terms of number of people being served and the issues. As we look ahead here, there's no predicting of what next the next year will bring. But I think if there was a way that we could nibble away a little bit at the, at our whole budget, I know Dave is staring at me right now. If there was a-
shooting daggers at
I don't think it would be I don't think it'd be unreasonable. Oh, no, there's Rob that's here, yeah. I'm with Heidi. I would make the motion to double it for next year with the understanding that, if we make it 16,000, is available, we don't necessarily have to spend all that, depending on what the,
That is correct.
so, you know, Heidi, if you want me to make the motion, or if you want to
For
make the
next year,
motion,
or
or if
for
other
to cover
people
it?
want to jump in.
I would like to add something to this year, since it's more than double what we have, what
Is this
we
something that,
authorized.
is this something maybe that you want to send to
A committee?
Yes.
for
Yeah, okay.
discussion rather than setting a
Yes.
dollar amount
Because
right
I would
now?
like, I would like the administration to come back, and now I'll make that motion, if that's okay now.
I'll second that.
I would like the administration to come back with a recommendation as to what we could reasonably afford to offer this year, and then we make another, we still have to pass for next year anyways.
Right.
So we can look at, factor this data in.
You
So-
can include that in the budget.
Yeah, so it would be a two-step, if I'm hearing you right, and that's why I'm asking the question. One, you want to look at the spending for this year that's
Yes.
already budgeted, and we can do a budget appropriation amendment, which we do a couple times a year, or multiple times a year. So that we
Yes.
can handle through that appropriation
Oh, there's
amendment.
Rob.
And then secondly, presumably, look at, like Roger said, whether it's 15, 16 for
Right.
next year, and that would be in our normal budget process.
Correct.
The only question I have is, wasn't this also supposed to be in the heat of the summer? So we actually are only halfway through the sort of service season, although I suspect cold is more than the heat.
I know there's a motion on the floor, so I'm gonna break
I'll
protocol
allow,
and
I'll
talk.
allow it.
Thank you.
Girl power, I like it.
But Dave actually went wherever I was gonna go, because we did talk about the need for a warming center, but again, we don't know. So we can, with the warming center, I still have to work with Anne Marie on at what temperature do we initiate that, just like I had to do with this. Is it gonna be just overnight services, is it gonna be, et cetera. So I would suggest for the warming center, we do what we did this, let's run with it, understanding appropriations will come, but then retroactively, we can look at what that cost is. We can do a not-to-exceed number if that makes everyone comfortable. But I do think that it'd be better to, because that is, again, an unknown.
Yeah.
Yes, Jerry. Mr. Mayor.
Going back to a little, I understand what we're doing here, but can we still somehow find out what the commitments of other cities are in this county?
I can ask, yeah. I mean, I can ask that they'll.
I want to be the front runner, we're Kendall House. I don't want to know other people are helping.
I will tell you, though, that the data was tracked where I was able to pull out those that were assisted in Kent, which was the 18. So that, and they would have been assisted with or without council support, but obviously it is a nonprofit. They do a lot with very little, and so the assistance from the city is greatly appreciated, not only by Anne Marie and her staff, but by the Community Development Department, because we deal with this population in various levels, and so we definitely have great gratitude for it.
So,
Good question.
call the question?
Yes, Heidi, do you have a question?
Yeah, call the question, meaning, can we,
go for it.
we have a motion, we have a second. to
Can
put
we,
this
can we
into-
repeat
into
the
committee.
motion so that
Yes.
everybody's aware of exactly what the motion is?
To put it into committee for the administration to come back to us with a recommendation as to whether and how much we can expand upon what we offered for this past year, the 8,000, seeing that it was exceeded by so much. The need was exceeded. So that's basically the motion. Put it into the committee. We'll revisit it next month or whatever.
It will need to be next month because the agency does need to receive the payment. So I wouldn't want to delay that too long.
Okay, I'll add that next month.
Let's take a vote.
All right.
You okay with that?
I just
Roger?
want to make sure everybody's clear on what it was, because there was a lot of discussion before
Yeah.
we got to the final motion. Okay.
Got it.
All right. let's go to the audience real quick and see if there's any
Other comments?
comments. No? All right, back to council then. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
I'm not going in.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
Bridget's next.
here.
Don't go anywhere. We got you a motion on your report. All right, so up next is a request for administrative variance for the 1238 West Main Street.
Yes, this is really, it's a technicality and a housekeeping issue. So in 99% of the time, in a new commercial development, they're required to tie in the sanitary and the water laterals at the frontage, because that's where most of the city's main lines run. In the case of the new Claiborne dealership, however, it is located on the north side of West Main, which would mean excavation of all 4 lanes of West Main.
Oh.
In addition, it's at a depth of 8 feet. The other alternative on the frontage is actually on the east corner. However, there is a stormwater main through that would create a conflict, utility conflict. With this property, there's actually an existing sanitary easement along the rear. So this is basically asking for an administrative variance to allow for the lateral tie-in for the new dealership to be to that main. This has been reviewed by both the city engineer department, Corey, as well as the service director, and they are in agreement that this is the most appropriate step for this specific development. So I'm just looking for a motion to approve that administrative variance.
Good question.
All right, Roger's got a question, yes?
Yeah, Bridget, as I look at this map, I know the neighborhood well. Is that, will that impact is that easement through private properties that butt up against that at all?
It already exists, and this lateral would be coming in off the back and into that.
So it's not going to impact any
no,
of the
it's
neighbors?
gonna
That's
be-
fine.
No,
Okay.
not at all.
All right. Any additional questions from council? All right, anyone from the audience have questions? No? All right, back to council.
I'd like to move to approve with emergency.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion, Jeff?
Nope.
All right, any other discussion from anyone else I haven't called on? No? Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thanks,
Okay,
Bridget.
we'll move into finance
Oh,
committee, Mr.
Dan,
DeLeon.
you want a chair?
Bridget's up there again.
Yeah, Bridget's up here again.
Yeah. 2 more, then I sit down, I come back.
Oh, yeah, we can.
So annually, the city provides funding through the Economic Development Department for the Celebrate Kent grant program. This was created to basically support organizations that bring events to downtown, because it then brings business that supports all our downtown companies. So this year, we allocated, we had requests of $15,740. Most of these are for programs and events that you are all familiar with. We do have a slight carve-out that does go for diversity grant funding, but we actually only received, we had funding available from that because we only received 1 event. So we were actually able to fund all of the events at their request. So the Haymaker Farmers Market is received, they're receiving $3,000 for music at the market. The Standing Rock Cultural Arts received money for 2 different events. The Downtown Innovative Community Event, or what we call a DICE. It's 5 events actually in a series. The Who's Your Mama Earth Day with Environmental Film Festival, they received $800. The Kent Craft Beer Fest received $1,800. The Crooked River Arts Council is the group that does some of the larger music events that we have. They do Beatle Fest, American Roots Blues Fest, and Kent Rocks, and they receive funding for all of those events, totaling $13,800. And we did receive 1 diversity grant request, the South End Juneteenth Committee, for their 14th annual Juneteenth Day celebration. They requested $1,200, and they received $1,200 in funding because that was available. I can answer any questions anyone might have about those events or the funding levels.
Questions? Well,
Where's the money for these programs come from?
It's general fund money. This is from the city's budget. It is not state or federal, which
It's
is
not,
why it
okay.
allows us the latitude to support these types of initiatives.
Okay.
Further questions? Anybody from the audience?
Oh, is it fourth? Okay. That was Eric then. Eric has a typo. Yeah, oh, it's fourth. No, it was me reading wrong.
What was that?
It's
It
the
wasn't the
fourth.
14th.
It's the fourth annual Juneteenth Day
Okay,
celebration. I said
okay.
14th. I must need new reading glasses. I must need new reading glasses. It's the
Okay.
fourth.
So-
yeah, thank you.
Nobody, back to council then.
Move to approve.
Second.
Do you need emergency on
No, we
that?
don't.
It's actually just
It's
a
actually-
report.
Oh, okay.
We don't
Oh,
actually
you're
have
just
to.
Okay.
reporting.
Yeah.
Oh.
Never mind.
The local funding, because it's already appropriated in the budget by council, the funds are appropriated for these activities.
Well, thank you for your information.
Yes, that was great.
We'll move on. Social service grant funding.
This is also informational. This is local funding resource as well. So the social service grant program has been around, Dave and I were talking about this. I've been here 17 years, and it's been around this long. And it's $65,000, and it goes to organizations that provide social service support for Kent residents. Coleman Health Services received $14,000 for eviction prevention and housing startup. It assists persons with severe and persistent mental illness who are at risk of eviction or termination of their utilities or housing. They help an average of 15 households, an average of 20 people, a funding cycle. Community Legal Aid receives $6,000. They provide assistance to low-income residents who have civil legal issues that need addressed but can't afford to retain private legal counsel. An average of 15 residents are assisted with this each funding cycle. Access Family Services, which is Family and Community Services, which has merged with Access, provides housing and emergency support services. We call it the acronym HES. It's $6,000. HES serves households identified as in housing crisis or close to homelessness. It provides case management services and referrals for those needing more comprehensive support to improve their long-term housing stability. So this group tends to assist with those that need to transition to voucher-assisted housing and partners with the Housing Authority on that. An average of 15 households or 30 people are assisted a funding cycle. Access Health Services Portage Area Recovery Center, PARC, received $5,000. This provides ongoing supportive services to individuals who have completed substance abuse recovery because of a court order and reside in a sober living transitional housing facility in Kent. For those of you that are new to council, it's probably been about 6 years now, they blur together, but we actually provided $75,000 for them to renovate the property on Silver Meadows to set up this sober housing, and that money was matched by the Ohio Department of Mental Health. And the facility has been operating, and they do an average, they have 23 beds, and it services an average of about 50 individuals a funding cycle. Access Health Services Safer Futures is the domestic violence shelter. It provides emergency and transitional housing for domestic violence survivors. It provides supportive services and legal advocacy, case management, and safety planning. An average of 175 victims, that includes women and children, are assisted annually through this program. Love Light, the Building Community Building Futures Youth Program, received $12,000. It focuses on programs of low-income children and teens who reside in voucher-assisted or public housing residential complexes in the city of Kent. It coordinates activities including after-school programs, outdoor activities, games, crafts, field trips, and activities that focus on esteem building and healthy personal development. An average of 100 youth are assisted through the various programs each year. PMHA, the Portage Metropolitan Housing Authority, runs a Good Neighbor program. So public housing is owned and managed by the Housing Authority. Voucher-assisted housing or vouchers given to private entities to rent to persons in housing need. So PMHA runs the Good Neighborhood program at their own public housing properties. The activities include to encourage residents to be observant of what might be happening in terms of criminal activity or potential safety concerns, It also empowers residents and encourages them to participate in beautification, like they did a butterfly garden a few years ago with some of this funding. An average of 200 to 225 Kent residents reside in public housing, and they benefit from the program. So I'm going to, before I turn it open it to questions, Dave and I were talking, Melissa had asked a question with regards to some of the issues and concerns with the unknowns of changes in the economy and how those might affect some of the most at need in our community. So Dave had talked to Hope and I, and we facilitate. I think he used the word that we facilitate the concierge. We're concierge with nonprofits, but we aren't the direct delivery. We just literally don't have the staff to do that. So we partner with agencies and try to maximize. Well, the funding for this, the $65,000, has been the same the 17 years that I have been here. So these programs do a lot, and they receive other funding sources, but giving these groups more money would extremely benefit the residents that are served and the agencies that administer them. So we're going to be talking about, Rhonda's shooting arrows at me again, we're going to be talking about budget appropriations here soon, and it might be time to consider increasing the funding on this program to $100,000 so that we can assist these programs at a level that has kept pace with inflation. So I can take any questions.
So can I jump in? I just want to reiterate, gosh, I don't know. It's too early for allergies, isn't it, or no? Am I wrong?
No.
So, yeah, I want to be clear. We never intended to sound insensitive to the national dialogue issues. We weren't as excited about writing a letter, but we were very interested in local impact. It was less for us about making a political statement than trying to do things boots on the ground to help people that are going to most need it. Melissa did send a couple of questions that really helped trigger some things for us, and one conversation led to the next, and that's why, as she said, today we kind of came up with this. I didn't even realize it's been that long since we've upped that fee. But again, we're not in that direct service business. We don't have a Department of Social Services. I've worked in cities that do. We don't. We basically help subsidize those programs with all the agencies around us. And the good news is there are a lot of agencies around. The bad news is because there's a lot of poor people around. So we think it's important, and I know it sounds like a lot to say 100,000, but I actually think that that's a fair number for where we're at. We can absorb that and hopefully then do some things to address the very issues that you guys are worried about. So that's kind of our sort of backstory on that.
And if additional funding is appropriated, I think it might be helpful too to maybe look at expansion beyond the definition of social service as it was first initiated, because I do think kind of the way it's worded, we don't do direct food support, and I think that if we were to make some changes about those types of direct assistance, we could maybe assist KSS at some level as well.
Roger?
Yeah, I just a couple things. I think it's also important, and I like the idea of increasing, but it's important because the agencies that we're supporting, they acknowledge when they apply for grants that the city is actually partnering, and I think it's real important. I think we forget that social service agencies, the dollars that we provide, they leverage for a greater amount of thing. And I think that sometimes, and I understand the average citizen, because it sometimes escapes me. I have to remind myself that those dollars are really being translated into a greater dollars. So the more we can provide within the limits of our budget, I think is very appropriate. And Rhonda, I'm sorry I opened the dam about more money when I made that comment previously. So.
Anything further? Heidi?
Yeah. So let me just clarify. Are we talking about potentially expanding this now or for the budget next year?
Well, I was thinking the budget next year, but if additional appropriations were given now, all of the agencies that we funded, we could actually reasonably, based on number of served, give them additional funding that would be used. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. And we could come up with those recommendations based on the budgets, because it shows the city amount, but as Roger so clearly pointed out, it's leveraged. And so we see all the other funding sources. So by us providing that would free up more money that they can use for other items in their budget. So if that was council's pleasure, we could definitely assign the funds to these current projects.
I have to say that I'm very proud of these grants. I think this is unusual for a city, especially one of our size, to offer these. And I no longer work for Coleman, so I don't have any skin in the game here other than as a council person and a representative of people, some of whom are really struggling and may struggle even more. So I think these are unique to Kent. It represents our values, and so I would be in favor of expanding that amount to the amount that Dave has suggested. I don't know if I'm making a motion here.
You can't.
Yep, okay, so there you go. But I would be in favor.
I just want to thank you both for taking an idea and running with it and coming up with even more than I had hoped for from my small little email and sharing just my own concerns. We are so blessed to have great organizations, social service organizations, and I think that we can partner with them effectively, and I would love to make a motion whenever it's appropriate to get some feedback from you after you consult with them to see what we could do next.
Is there further discussion?
Mike, can I just add?
Sure.
It probably goes without saying for those of you that have worked, but know very clearly too that Bridget has both worked in that industry and oversees it with an exceptional degree of sort of knowledge of the area. The money will be put to good use, I guess is my point. This isn't one of those concerns, who's going to oversee the money? Is it going to be, trust me, she puts them through the drill, and the good ones can do it, and that's why, and then we keep reinforcing, that's why you see the same names again and again in part, because they're, like you said, they're good agencies, and they know that's part of the drill. There is a lot of administrative extracurricular activity that goes along with these, even in our grants, and Bridget does a great job with that. So if somebody says, what are you throwing more money at something, it's being wisely invested and managed and monitored, so just know that.
We even have an average cost per resident based on the scope and scale that they have to report in the grant, and the budgets are very specific. They're only allowed to move 10% of a budget line item too. They were a little loose with that before I got here.
Is there further discussion? Robin, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, Roger brought something up.
Did you talk into the microphone? I don't think anybody can hear you.
My apologies.
Is it on?
Roger brought something up, which quite honestly is very important. The leveraging aspect of additional resources being brought to the table, and ultimately how we explain that out to residents about the missions that we're addressing. That this basically gives us an opportunity to meet those objectives at a greater level because we're doing that. And I think that's very important. And explaining it to our constituents is also very important. It's not just to us, but it's opening up a whole new kind of panacea for additional resources to be brought to the table. Like you said, we have a lot of great social service agencies and network. And the way that we as a city have been able to do that, and having Bridget's background also brought there, probably only expands the opportunities there. So I'm very excited about what Roger said, because actually I think that's another aspect of how we can get that out to our residents and let them know this is what, by doing this, we're getting additional bang for the buck. So
Anything further? Maybe council? Is there anybody in the audience have anything for this? I don't know if I went there yet or not. Back to council.
Do we
Melissa,
need-
I'll let-
I'd like to make a motion that we ask our very great staff to come back with a recommendation about expanding the social service grant.
Second, oh, go ahead. All right.
Do you really want us to come back? I mean, we'll tell you the recommendation right now, 100,000.
Oh, you already did?
Yeah.
We did,
Yep.
we
So-
talked today.
We did that so that you
Okay.
could.
Do you want to amend your?
Yeah, you want to amend your motion?
And Rhonda's standing in the back
Yeah.
and doesn't look happy,
It's
so
an
I'm really nervous.
It's an
So
additional
can I amend my motion?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the addition for our social service grant up to $100,000.
And I'll second that one, too.
Further discussion?
Yeah, Mike.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I'd like to make one other comment, because I know that there's that sensitivity that Dave brought up about the current state of flux and uncertainty and everything, and we don't know what's going to happen. From my perspective, we don't know what's going to happen. So we have a choice. You either turn your back on your fellow citizens who do need this help and services. You have a choice to not turn your back and provide at least a little bit more of a safety net in case we don't have enough dollars going to these things. And from being the cockeyed optimist that I am, I think that it's a good time to invest in people right now, because people do need that investment. So I wholeheartedly support this.
Further, anyone? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Thank
you,
you very much.
Bridget. Yep, well, we got a whole bunch of people coming.
Oh, Rhonda.
I'll actually, I could tell that Rhonda's still in a state. No, I did want to just kind of introduce the topic here. So I think council knows, for those that have shared any of the aggravation that we had, the frustration with finding money. It's one thing to find money for what we just did on a scale that's manageable. It's a whole nother topic altogether, trying to come up with $2 million for one new fire truck. We've been working diligently for grants and legislative earmarks and kind of knocking on partners' doors and trying to force open their wallets to some extent. And, because we all benefit. Our partners, particularly Kent State, Franklin Township, and others. Anybody that has a tall building in Kent, because what we're talking about is the ladder truck, the biggest ladder truck that we have. So it certainly has served us well over how many decades, but it's kind of at the end of its refurbishment. We've refurbished to the point where I'm not sure we can continue to refurbish. It's still operating, it's still running, but being the good chief that he is, Jamie's like, I can't guarantee it'll keep operating. I'll keep doing the best I can to duct tape it together. But, and we were reminded not that long ago that these fires do happen. We had the mill fire. It was among many ladder trucks out there and pumper trucks and so forth on that particular day. And, that's sort of our day of infamy, really, for a fire service. So we've been working to the best that we can to secure funding. We're still doing that. We have, I think just last week, I was reading grant applications and letters of support that we're kind of using to see if we can maybe get some external support. In the meantime, though, Rhonda and I and Jamie as well, but we've had a series of conversations with Kent State University talking about, hey, in the past, 30 years ago or whatever it was when it was bought, you guys have shared in some of the price, and they've always said, yeah, we can do that. And being the good sort of financier that Rhonda is, she wants it in writing. So, in part, and I joke, but it's not that we can't trust them, but to be honest, given what they're facing right now with the pretty significant changes in the state of Ohio's funding towards their organization and the cuts that they're facing, I certainly wouldn't blame them for at least asking the question, maybe I can't afford to, support the fire truck. So while we still have their attention and their support, Rhonda came up with the idea, let's put it in writing. And so that's what.
Actually, it was a FEMA thing.
It was what?
The FEMA grant that we were trying to
That's
apply
right.
for, they're the ones that contacted us and started the ball rolling.
That's
with
right.
the FEMA grant.
So, now that I've said like everything, I didn't mean to, but you guys can have it. I mean, from there, if you want to talk specifically about the document, but that's what we're asking your approval for, this MOU, which essentially articulates the shared funding approach. So.
And it also adds that they're going to pay $100,000 for each year for 5 years, because it's going to take almost that long to, once Chief starts speccing out and giving, trying to get prices and quotes and whatnot, it's going to take almost 5 years to get the truck finally made. We ordered a truck in 2022, and we haven't received it yet. So.
Is it paid for?
It's got an appropriation already.
Okay.
It's encumbered.
I just thought I'd ask.
It's encumbered.
Okay.
Yeah, you approved it in 2022.
Okay.
So this is, they're participating in 25%. We are applying for another grant through Dave Joyce's office that could potentially give us a nice significant chunk of the cost, and then it would just reduce all the others, our out-of-pocket and Kent State's. But Kent State also said that potentially they could be looking at helping us with some of our other trucks as well, if we get that other money, so, we'll see.
Questions? Oh, okay.
What is the price range on a ladder truck? Just, I don't have any idea.
This ladder truck would be somewhere around $2 to $2.2 million. And just to put it in perspective, when we bought the tower that we have now, we call it a tower truck, it's a 100-foot ladder truck, it was between $600,000 and $700,000 in the 90s. And what happened during COVID was, with inflation, just timed with COVID, the target kept moving 6% higher every quarter, and it just exorbitantly increased from a value of about $1.5 million around 2020 to where we're at now, close to $2.2 million. Orders kept coming in because municipalities need that fire apparatus even when COVID was happening. So orders keep coming in. Factories aren't producing them as fast because workforces were, minimizing. As the orders backlogged, this is what Rhonda and Dave are speaking to when they talk about a 5-year window to get a truck. So you're just farther back in the queue before they make your truck. Now I can tell you there's two custom fire company apparatus companies that are utilized by a lot of fire departments around here. One of them is Sutphen in Columbus. The other is Pierce in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, or Appleton, Wisconsin. They have given us a 36 to 54 month range of what it would take, and that's after our department puts the specs together, money would be appropriated, and we decide we're going to enter into a contract. So the idea of what Dave said, keeping the apparatus functionable and serviceable to the community in the meantime is our #1 goal, but we don't want to run out of rope by the time this truck comes due and we say we're still 3 years out. So that's why we're taking action now, working with partners to try to shorten that gap and make sure we're protected well the whole time.
I'm trying to sign a contract before we get increases again.
It just as a quick follow-up. So once the new truck is delivered, the old truck, is that something that has any value that we can sell it, or does it?
Typically what we've done in the past is there's some places, GovDeals, they sell fire apparatus that's used to communities that maybe don't even have permanent funding or tax dollars. Sometimes that can be traded in with the company against the cost of what you're buying. And I think that's just something you put feelers out there for to determine where you get the best return as a community on. But that really speaks to, like I said, the time frame of why it takes so long now. It used to be maybe a 9-month process. 3 months to spec it, 6 months to build it, you had it. But boy, times have changed.
Jerry, you have something?
Yeah, a question to Dave, I guess a historical question. It used to be that we partnered 3, Kent State, Franklin Township, and Kent, but with negotiations, Franklin Township is not a player anymore?
No, it's not fair to say that. You guys can speak to that. You've been more.
Mayor, I went to a couple township meetings at the end of 2024. I introduced this topic, without us knowing what it's going to cost and without having an MOU in place with Kent State. I more or less brought to their attention how expensive things are, how long it's going to take to buy, and the fact that this is happening with a lot of our stuff, not just this ladder truck. So it becomes a big challenge for us as a city to overcome these hurdles, and they acknowledged that in the meeting, and they said, we want to have some internal discussions, which I was allowing that to kind of marinate and them to do. I wanted to introduce that, and I haven't specifically gone back with Dave or Rhonda and asked them for a specific cost share. They are aware of it. They are contemplating how they could partner with us. For our grants so far, they have written letters of support. So I feel very confident that they would probably come through the way we would hope and partner with us financially. There's just not been a specific ask or a specific commitment.
The reason I asked the question, because this present piece of equipment you got now, I think was paid for 3 parties.
It was.
And I just wondering what the availability of that happening again. But I know negotiations, somehow we ended up with equipment from them, and I just didn't know whether they just X out of it or what. Okay.
Further from council? Seeing none, anybody in the audience have anything? Back to council. Oh, where? Oh, could you come to the microphone, please? Give your name and address. Anything else? No.
Aaron Koppel, and then Kent State University,
Okay.
Clark Hall, I believe. I guess specifically to you, just for clarification, you said that this has been, you're just trying to get the monetary, essentially, or the commitment of it. So how much would you say is already committed, or there's talks of Kent State providing stuff? How much are they saying they're going to provide? And then,
So the MOU is for 25% of the total cost, up to a maximum of $2 million.
where are you getting the other funds? Are there already
Right now,
people
it's all
secured?
city.
It's all city right
It's
now?
all city as of right now.
Are there any solutions for it not to just be city? Are there, you mentioned a grant?
That's where we're applying. We've applied to 2 grants, and then also trying to partner with another municipality.
Okay, that was it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Just a comment.
Comment, okay.
Just a comment, Rhonda, would you agree that having the MOU also will help us in our pursuit of other grants in terms of leveraging the dollars we can commit?
We're hoping.
Okay, so no further questions?
I'd like to make a motion.
Make a motion, please.
I'd like to move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think so. Okay, now we're back to Rhonda again.
The next item you have on your agenda is the appropriation amendment number 2 that we have. There's a few items on there, and we're just asking approval with an emergency.
Questions?
Rhonda, do you want to add what they just approved, the $35,000 for social service funding? I mean, you want to include that into that's,
Does it need to be now, or do you want to?
you can do it verbally now, and then we'll just make sure it's in the ordinance in 2 weeks, right?
Yes, we can. We can amend that 35,000.
Any other further questions, Dave?
So easy.
Okay.
Quick vote.
Is there anybody from the audience? Back to council. Heidi.
Yeah. I'd like to move the 2 appropriations with the emergency clause. Do we have to
Second.
do that?
Yeah, second.
No more discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Now, Rhonda's, yeah.
The last item I have is basically a housekeeping item for the West Side renewal levy. We're trying to get it on the ballot for this November, in hopes that it passes this November. We still have next year, May and November, to try again if it does not. So we're just trying to get it done early to be done. And then
Questions?
you'll see that we have the option to do a replacement or renewal. The renewal would bring in approximately the same amount of $268,000, whereas if we did the replacement, it would be a little over $300,000. If we do the replacement, it doesn't give us a whole lot more, but it also takes away the homestead and rollback that the state would pay. It would take that away from the residents, and that would be on their ballot.
Questions? Anybody from the audience? Back to council.
So judging by the blank look on some of the faces, we're, at this point, we're just, one, we want to do the first notice, right? This is a multi-step process.
Okay.
So this isn't the first, this is the first bite of the apple, but not the final bite of the apple. We're at this point not prepared to make a case for replacement. I think there's too much uncertainty in the world, and financially what's going to, we just talked about building a thicker safety net, and so to those things, we're just asking for renewal, if that was your question.
Yeah, and then just, if you could, you said it just very quickly on the homestead. If you could just quickly explain your reasoning for that. You said it really quick, and I wasn't sure I totally got it, and I'm not sure if people are listening that.
There's credits that people can receive on their property tax bills. A lot of people don't get the bills, so they don't know really what those are. But there are reductions off of your bill, but the state of Ohio then turns around and pays it to the city, or through the county via the city. If you did a replacement, those credits
Disappear.
would go away, and the whole bill would be on the taxpayer, the residents would have to pay that.
Further questions?
Can I make a motion?
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
Yes, so a motion for the renewal, to put the renewal on the ballot? Is that the
Yes.
kind of? Okay, I would make that motion.
That's good.
Discussion?
Melissa seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Thank
Thank you, Rhonda.
Okay, thank you, Michael and Rhonda. Health and Public Safety, Ms. Van Ryn.
Yes, the first item is Kent Safety Town, Declaration of Collective Intent.
You may recall, I can't remember how many months it's been, but it's probably been more than months. It may even been a year. I don't remember when Dave Myers came in from Rotary. He came in to speak and present the concept that Rotary was sort of rallying the community around this idea in partnership with the Junior Mothers of Kent to create our own safety town. And if you don't know what that acronym, or not an acronym, what that phrase is, that's the areas like you see in Stowe, what is that? Is that Fish Creek? Where we've got the little houses and the sidewalk and the signal, and they use it to teach safety to kids. And it's also a bit of a playground, but it's also kind of in concept meant to be a safety area to teach safety. And there's been a small working group meeting. Jim and I are both on that. Jim's been super helpful because he's done so many projects. This is a multi-partnered project. Kent City Schools, you all have endorsed it, so we're at the table. The Kent Mothers, Rotary has a couple of different people involved, and Kent State is also at the table too. So it's kind of, it's got a lot of players put in a way, and you can tell is who's in charge, how are we going to move it forward. And Jim's done this so many times, it's like, just tell us what to do, Jim, and we'll do it. So that's pretty much how it's been, and he even rolled out some, those of you that have been in any of Jim's public meetings where he's got rolls, these giant things that he prints of pictures and starts drawing things on it, and he's done that in our group. So it's starting to create excitement. It's starting to kind of have a center to it. That's now we're building around it, and there's been conversations with consultants and engineering design firms. So while you may not have heard a lot recently, there's been a lot of activity. It's been great because it's one of the few projects actually is funded. They got both Rotary Foundation monies and they had a grant, I believe, right?
In the state budget.
Yeah, so, and just as a quick reminder, if Jim doesn't say it, this is down sort of adjacent to Holden School. So one of the things the school is providing, the school system is providing the property that's essentially not being used. So I'll stop and Jim, go ahead.
Okay. So as Dave mentioned, you guys all know Rotary's working on a safety town. Unfortunately, due to the nature of Rotary, they can only do so much. They can help facilitate the installation, but they don't own land. They won't be maintaining it. And they don't have the expertise or resources to do this type of work. But they have funding, like Dave said, and they are motivated. That's really important. So as Dave mentioned, they developed many partners, and there's a synergy, like he mentioned, developing. So we're asking to sign a declaration of collective intent with these partners to share resources, ideas, and talents to develop the project. It isn't to pay any money to fund it, but it's to spend our time to help them create that. And then at a future date, once there's a vision, people come to an agreement, we'll come back with an agreement. Like, so we know sort of what land it's going to be on. This sort of firms it up with the school district, but who's going to maintain it, how it's going to be maintained, what the length of time it sits, a bunch of other questions that you can't really answer until you have some vision in mind. So we're here requesting your approval to execute the Declaration of Collective Intent.
Jack, you in charge?
Yes.
Okay.
Questions?
I was just wondering.
Can you share with us any details about that you're considering? Just, I think it's interesting to hear, like, are there going to be little houses on it or little roads?
Oh no, how much
Can you
how much
describe-
time do you have, Gwen?
I
We were making good progress through the meeting, and now we're gonna.
I'm curious. This is very interesting to me.
It's got.
Are they
great-
going to have the pedal cars? Are we talking big wheels? Like, just real quick, a couple sentences.
Sure.
Paint a
couple
picture for me.
sentences, and Dave, you can jump in afterwards.
It's super exciting. There's too much. No, I mean honestly, this is
Yeah.
well above and beyond just a
Safety town.
a little safety town.
Pick just,
This
if
is
you
going to be a new
pick your
park.
favorite thing about it, each of you. That'll
Yeah.
satisfy me.
So my favorite thing about it is the vision that's starting to come together. It actually is not creating just a safety town, it creates a public park, okay, in the south end. And it will it has features that, well, the concept is to have features that represent the city. So yes, small buildings that represent the buildings in the south end, downtown, things that kids would be familiar with. Also sort of features, like we want to make sure like railroad crossings are in it, because we have a lot of railroad crossings where Stowe doesn't have those. And the other thing that at least I like at the moment, due to the nature of the site, it could tie in with Holden School and be used there. So unlike the other ones in Stowe where it's sort of seen not used as frequently and it's sort of off to the side, this would be incorporated and programmed. And to me, that's exciting for the community to have that resource during all that time period. And due to the nature of where it's set back, we don't have to stick a fence around it with a gate. So that's me personally.
That sounds fantastic.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Jim, I'm not going to go through some of the other stuff, but at this point, they're at the phase of throw out your ideas, right? And there's going to be more of that. There's going to actually be, more like community input too. It's not just like a Rotary project all on its own in isolation. And where was I going with that? I had a good point. Jim, the size.
Yeah.
So Jim had a great way of showing. So he rolled out that engineering size paper, and it kind of has I don't know if it had the elevation, but it had a lot of what the site could look like, and it certainly had the site boundaries. And then he took what looked like a little card and said, this is Stowe's. And ours is like this. Wow. And Stowe's is like that.
Right.
And that's what makes it really exciting, not that we're trying to one-up Stowe, but just that we can do so much more. That's why walking area, you know, so like a mother or whoever could be pushing a stroller around, and the seating areas are gonna be abundant, there's gonna be, we're trying to keep trees. The elevation on the property really favors a lot of natural seating and a pavilion area and information kiosks or community bulletin boards. I mean, there's a lot of excitement at this point about what could be out there. And as Jim said, I think the really neat thing is they're going to try to program. They're going to be thoughtful about programming it. So it's not just it's a park, but they're going to try to program it. And, you know, in the back there is Angela, and they're going to, she's involved, but she's going to get more involved because a lot of these things like programming and so forth are going to lean towards her. So anyways, they're early morning meetings, and that part I don't like, but everything else, this has been it's an exciting project for what's coming to a part of town that's kind of having its own little renaissance, right? I mean, the South End has had the historic district, they got community gardens, they do poetry readings. You know, there's a lot of excitement down there, and we're happy that this can continue that.
Jack?
Roger.
Yeah. Angela and I were at some of the initial meetings. That's been over 2 years ago. And I remember, Jim, and it's a great educational opportunity for our community, because a lot of people, I mean, I was sitting at those meetings and there were some great ideas, and then all of a sudden we get this big chunk of money coming from the state government. And a lot of times people think, oh, you have all this money, so this is easy. Let's just go build the park. I mean, and I understand that. I mean, that enthusiasm. But so I'm sorry that your life and Dave's life is getting a little bit overturned in terms of the time and effort, but I couldn't think of any organization better than our city to help guide this project. It's one that really has grown exponentially. It was initially just thought to be a simple little park, and yes, we should be bigger than Stowe. I mean, we should be doing these things because we're doing them in a collective nature. We have a lot. I think, Jamie, you were at one of those meetings, right? Is he still here? And the key was to bring people together and bring the entities together. So I'm pleased that that part of it's working.
Anybody else from council? Anybody from the audience have comments? Back to council.
Move to approve with the emergency.
Second.
Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the second item on the Health and Public Safety Committee agenda is proposed purchase of public safety video detection technology. Chief?
All right, I was going to introduce you a little bit while you get settled in, but this is a topic that he's brought up a couple times before, and I'm sure he'll point this out too, but this is not like identity camera technology. This is a car tracking technology that's frankly pretty commonly used by many of our neighboring cities. And like a lot of things with technology, when it is working, and let's assume it works well, it really does kind of advance the capabilities for public safety. And Nick pointed out very clearly, it wasn't that long ago where we had the murder in the apartments on Water Street, and the vehicle fled. Now the good news was they eventually tracked him in Texas? Houston, Texas. But Nick's point was, you know, with this camera technology, if we had this, I think we could have caught him a lot sooner than Texas. So it seems like it's something that's become fairly common in the industry. It's a contract that we provide, and I think I'm guessing that's what the folks in the background are, the company that we would look to contract with. So it's a multi-year contract, service contract. We pay a certain fee, and they essentially manage the cameras. And when we need something tracked or searched, I presume we contact them. It's not live camera feeds. Nick can't sit in his office and see that Gwen didn't come to a complete stop at the stop sign. It's not like that at all. But I don't mean to joke, because I know it can be a sensitive topic. It's not what that's not what these cameras are. So they're definitely different, and be sure to ask them questions if you have concerns about that. And the best part of this really is Nick has forfeiture money, so it's being a part of some of the arrests and the confiscation of money and equipment and vehicles and so forth. There is a certain amount of funds that we get after those things happen, and Nick's of the opinion that we can do that. We can purchase this technology with funding that was otherwise, secured through crime, basically. So it's kind of a nice full circle. Anyways, that's about the extent of my detailed knowledge, Nick, so it's all yours.
All right, so is it okay? Yeah, there we go. So I'll go ahead and start off. At some point here, I will turn it over. So this is Michael Lucas. Michael Lucas is a representative from Flock Safety, and on the TV, I know you all can't see the TV, so there actually is going to be a presentation conducted here shortly by Jonathan Paz, also from Flock Safety. So I don't know if you guys want to get up and maybe walk over here so you can see it. It's minor, which I tried to turn that on, but they told me it's not working, so I apologize. Again, I want to start just by thanking you all for your time tonight. I'm here to discuss the Flock Safety Automated License Plate Reader System, or ALPR. ALPR technology uses high-speed cameras combined with sophisticated computer algorithms capable of converting the images of license plates and vehicles to electronically readable data. The ALPR system captures an image of a license plate and converts it to a text file using optical character recognition technology. The technology also compares the digital images of license plates to the Criminal Justice Information System National Crime Information Center hot file database. The ALPR system offered by Flock Safety is a system that's affixed to a pole. So it's not mobile, it's not on cars, it's affixed to a pole. The system can be affixed to already existing poles where they're available, and if there's not one available, Flock Safety will install a pole in the location that we choose to install that. So the camera and equipment is not owned by the city. It's all owned by Flock Safety. All the maintenance of the cameras is the responsibility of Flock Safety. In addition to the cameras, Flock Safety has an integrated user interface that allows police officers to search for data in the system to include cameras in other cities as well. Officers will also receive alerts to vehicles entered into the National Crime Information System database. When they get an alert, it would send the officer, basically let them know that there's been an alert onto a specific vehicle. It shows them a picture of the vehicle, and those alerts are specific to things that are entered into the National Crime Information Center, which would be missing persons. And I know that sounds weird because it's the National Crime Information Center, but that's really just a nationwide database that we have. So, for instance, if we had a missing elderly person in the city, we would enter that person into the database, and that goes nationwide. So any missing person in the country would be something we would get an alert to. We would get alerts to any stolen vehicle from anywhere in the country, and we would get alerts to serious felony warrants. I want to be clear when I say it this way. Even local warrants here from our city, we don't necessarily get alerts to that. So there are two different systems in Ohio, essentially, to be able to check for wanted persons. One is the Law Enforcement Automated Database. That's the Ohio system. That system is not linked to Flock Safety. So your lower level misdemeanor warrants, we're not necessarily getting alerts on those. We're only getting alerts on more serious felony warrants with a nationwide pickup radius that are entered into the National Crime Information Center. To break this down to an operational level, officers working will receive alerts when vehicles entered into the National Crime Information Center pass by a camera. It's important to note that the cameras do not alert to individuals, rather to vehicles associated with people. The cameras do not record live video footage. All they do is they do not record live video footage, and they do not take photos or video of the occupants in the vehicle. So what happens is this is a motion-activated system. When a vehicle passes by one of the license plate readers, it takes multiple snapshots of the vehicle. It's photos. It's not even video footage. So there's no real-time ability to monitor or watch traffic like Dave said. We're not looking for this to be a system of Big Brother so we can look for traffic cameras and things like that for people running red lights. It's taking pictures of vehicles that are wanted for a certain reason. Once the officer receives an alert, he or she will respond to the area and attempt to locate the vehicle. So essentially, the platform we've built with Flock, and they have a consultant that worked with us in trying to build and develop where we would place cameras to be the most effective throughout the city. Obviously, they rely a lot on us for that because we have the local knowledge, but they also have systems architects that do this for a living. So we kind of rely on each other to determine where the best locations for cameras would be in the city. What we've essentially tried to do is put a license plate reader at every entrance to the city, and then strategically place other license plate readers around downtown. So really what we're looking to do is alert our officers if a vehicle enters this city that is wanted for some reason. And then beyond that, more from an investigative standpoint, we want to protect downtown. I know that the city's invested a lot in downtown. It's a beautiful downtown, and we know that it can be a target at times. So if we have license plate readers strategically positioned as vehicles leave downtown, it gives us something to go on when we're doing an investigation on anything that happens there. If the vehicle is located after the alert, the officer will be responsible to verify the alert with other departmental systems before taking action. So it's not just a, hey, we got this alert, go do something with this vehicle. It's let's try to confirm through that law enforcement automated database or our local records that there's a reason to interact with the vehicle beyond what that alert may be. In addition to this use, Flock is a valuable tool in conducting investigations. I do have a few examples. So Flock was gracious enough about a year ago. We were able to get basically a trial access to their cloud interface that gave us access to cameras in other cities around us that we could use as an investigative tool and test the system to see if we liked it. We didn't have our own license plate readers in the city, but we were able to search other cities' cameras. So
Nick, can you mention what cities have this camera or this technology? I think that's helpful for council to know.
Next. So around us, just of agencies that essentially touch us or nearly touch us, Ravenna, Brimfield, Aurora, Stowe, and Talmadge all have Flock. Beyond that, I know that one of the things, so some agencies have access to Flock in different ways as well. So one of the things, and I don't know if Michael or Jonathan plan to touch on this, Flock also has a contract nationally with Lowe's. So any Lowe's store you go to, you're on an LPR through Flock. They also, I believe, are in the works in developing a contract with Home Depot for the same purposes. So some agencies who may not have Flock themselves, like Streetsboro, for instance, they don't have their own Flock cameras, but they do have a Lowe's in their city. So I think they have access to the system because there's a camera in their city. I don't know the specifics of how that works, but I believe it has something to do with that. I do want to touch on a couple of use cases here from when we did have that temporary trial access to the system that we were able to use and solve crimes here in the city. If you guys remember, we had a couple, it's been about a year ago or so, we had a couple, maybe a year and a half ago now, we had a couple of robberies downtown at one of the vape shops downtown. Both of those robberies were solved with the use of Flock cameras. One, basically what happened is we were able to use surveillance video footage from a business downtown to get a vehicle description. We enter that vehicle description into Flock. When we had that access, we got a hit off of Ravenna's Flock camera on one of those vehicles that led to the identification of the suspect, and we got a hit from an Akron Flock camera on the other vehicle from the other robbery that allowed us to identify that suspect. If you're familiar, we had again, same time frame. All these are relatively the same time frame because I think our trial access was for 3 months. So this is a short window that we're looking into here. We had Shelley Materials had some high dollar thefts that occurred at Shelley Materials. It was a U-Haul truck they were using. We actually located that. That U-Haul truck ended up being stolen, but we located that and tracked down the suspect in that through the use of flock cameras in Akron. We had some cars stolen from a house in Riverbend. We located those and identified suspects on those out of a flock hit through Cleveland. We had a vehicle pursuit that we ended up locating and identifying the driver. We terminated the pursuit, but identified the vehicle and located the driver based on a flock hit from Stowe. We also had one of our local missing persons who we had entered into the National Crime Information Center that Cortland Police Department located with a flock hit. One of the incidents that I have on here to talk about, Dave, you kind of mentioned it, was the homicide we had on South Water Street in November of 23, it would have been. We had a very, very clear vehicle description in that case. Right on Ring camera video, we had a very clear vehicle description. Had we had a flock camera placed on one of the proposed locations is South Water at 261. Had we had a flock camera there at that time, within 30 minutes of getting that call, we would have identified that vehicle, had a license plate, and been able to track that down. In reality, what ended up happening is, over a month later, we had to extradite a suspect back from Houston, Texas. We would have had that suspect likely in custody. We actually know he stayed at the house in Akron where that vehicle was located for a week. We likely would have had that suspect in custody within 24 hours had we had a flock camera to be able to piece that all together. Some other important things I want to talk about with the flock system. They provide an audit trail for all vehicles searched in the system. When conducting a search in the system, officers and detectives are required to enter a reason for the search. Officers and detectives will be restricted from using the system to search anything except for legitimate law enforcement purposes, and our department will conduct audits to ensure that there's no misuse of the system. The benefits of the system are vast. I already went over some of the local agencies who use it, but beyond the ones, I pointed to the ones that are very local, the ones that we essentially touch, or Ravenna we don't quite touch, but we're very close, obviously. But there are, I don't want to say hundreds, but there are a significant number of agencies in Northeast Ohio that use this system. There are other license plate reader systems and technologies out there. In Northeast Ohio right now, flock is so widely used that to go with another system, we'd be doing ourselves a disservice. What this does is it provides a network for our department to use as an investigative resource. When you're part of that flock network, you have the opportunity as the agency to determine if you want to share access to search your system with the other agencies here locally. Most of those agencies, when we had that trial access to the system, gave us that access and was what allowed us to solve a lot of these crimes. The issue with going with another system is we can't pair those two things together. You only get the resource, that interoperable resource of the vast majority of Northeast Ohio with flock safety. So at this point in time, I want to introduce, I already introduced him, I guess, but Michael Lucas here from Flock Safety, and on the TV is Jonathan Paz. Jonathan does have a presentation he'd like to quickly go over with you just to kind of show you some of the more intricacies of what this system is. Jonathan, I'll turn it over to you. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, and you can make it fairly brief.
Yeah, thank you. That was a very thorough presentation, so I will be very brief. Can folks hear me?
Yeah, I can hear him, yes.
Nice job. Wonderful. So I did have a presentation for you. I'll be brief. We were founded actually when a CEO was the victim of property crime himself, found out that his doorbell camera wasn't enough to apprehend the suspect, so he found out he needed a license plate. So he did a little bit of research and found out that license plate reading technology has been around for over 30 years. It's just very expensive. So he developed the best-in-class technology that doesn't break the bank. So we're now solving over 10% of crime, and we're a part of over 5,000 communities. We believe this technology helps really answer the paradox where police are expected to do more with less. I did want to we have a whole platform of solutions. This is what we're talking about today. This is our, we used to call it a Falcon. This is our license plate reader camera. Really quickly getting into the specs, this has already kind of been explained, but I just wanted to go a little bit more in depth. This is an infrastructure-free technology, so you don't have to put wires down. It's solar-powered. And they really take a snapshot of the back of a car, and it takes stock of two things. Number one, right, the license plate, but number two, the vehicular fingerprint. So that means that typically when crime happens, people don't memorize the license plate. They remember what the car looks like. So that information alone can be inputted into the system to develop a really good lead. And as was mentioned, right, it's integrated with the National Crime Information Center. So in under 30 seconds, if someone with a stolen car, if a missing person, if someone with a felony warrant comes to your jurisdiction, your neighborhood, these cameras will provide an alert in real time. So you're getting 24/7 coverage. This is what it looks like to get a real-time alert. So this is one alert. You can get these on your laptop, on your phone, on the app. But this is what it looks like to get from a catalytic converter theft. This is what it looks like to search through the system. So when I say vehicle fingerprint, it just means identifiable characteristics of the vehicle. So the vehicle make, the body type, the color, if it has bike racks, and so on. I did want to just take a little bit of time here to just quickly explain how we built this technology with privacy in mind. We believe in that balance, right? And I just wanted to clarify, the data is owned by you guys. We own the cameras, but we help you store it, but the data is completely owned by you and dictated by your policy. So typically it's deleted on a 30-day basis. So if there's data about cars moving around, it will be deleted unless it is part of a criminal investigation, because that data will be put into an investigative docket, right? So we're not getting individual personal data from people. This is really data pertaining to vehicles, and it is stored in an AWS government cloud. It's end-to-end encrypted. Security is paramount to us. And quickly about accountability and transparency, you do need a search reason to go into the system, and you can't just search around what your neighbor's doing. And any search is part of an indefinitely available audit trail. So we do enable periodic audits in the system. And we do provide a transparency portal, free of charge. So then folks in the public can know this is a tool in your toolbox, and you can share your intended uses there with the community, including your policy and so on. So again, this is all in an upfront price. The permitting, the storage, the maintenance, all of it is very much an upfront subscription. We want to be your long-term partners. Again, I said I was going to be brief. I'll just close out really quickly. We are in over 430 agencies in Ohio. Here are some towns listed. I did want to quickly just share a quick story about a 7-year-old bicyclist who was the victim of a hit and run in Akron. Officers on June 4th, 2024 responded to reports of a hit and run incident involving a child. The victim was rushed to the hospital with serious injuries. At the time, there was a bystander who did witness that, had a very, very limited description of the vehicle. They just knew it was blue and fled off. But that very limited description yielded a successful search in the system. They quickly identified the vehicle and responded to the registered owner's residence. So just keeping in mind, this does not replace the investigative process. It just refines it and makes it that more effective. So the officers were able to get an admission from the vehicle's owner of the accident, and subsequently that led to an arrest. And then there was a similar case study in Ontario, excuse me, where some suspects, the police got a call from some employees that said they just had 4 suspects flee with over $7,000 worth of MAC products, and they brandished a handgun. So they provided a description. It was like a blue Ford Fusion, and that description alone was, they put out an alert letting people know that this vehicle, they actually did get the license plate. They put in an alert, and they had the agency next over in Detroit were able to make the stop and arrest. And I just quickly wanted to share that with you because it just shows the power of our network and the importance of collaborating, right? Like this allows you to be able to be more effective because crime is regional, and that is the difference maker that Flock makes is our regional, our partnerships across the state. So very happy to answer questions. I did want to be brief. Thank you so much for having us.
You went over about, very quickly about residents. So I forget the screen. You went past it ethically maintaining this data and that information. Can you go back to that and expand on that a little bit?
It was the transparency.
Paz, I'm happy to take that while you pull it up if you'd like. Sure, if you want to.
This is,
Yeah, so one of the largest things at Flock is making sure that your residents can understand what is being searched and why. So the most common use case that we see across the country with 5,000 plus agencies is a transparency portal. Oftentimes it may be embedded in your town or your city website, and it's a link maybe under the police page, and it would essentially just highlight a link to the transparency portal, which would have your policies, which would have a link to the searches, and your residents and constituents could actually go in and check what has been searched. Now, in terms of officer specifically, it's not going to say Officer A did this, but it's going to require a search reason for every search. Most agencies that we see will tie that to a case number. So that case number could be related to an open case, it could be related to a 911 call, a missing person, so on and so forth. And usually that's made publicly available, and as Jonathan mentioned, frequently there's audits of that within each jurisdiction.
So
Jonathan, as you're pulling that up, anything you want to add to that? But I wanted to help you out while you're pulling that back up.
Yeah, I mean, we believe in being community partners. So trust is built through action, and this is one way that we're able to practice transparency.
Would that show, so Kent Police that do searches, that would show that, but what about other agencies, outside police agencies, federal agencies, would that be identified?
They do not have the ability to search unless you share that jurisdiction. So there are certain departments that we partner with across the United States that do not share any information. They have the Flock network because they want the national database, which ultimately the national database pares down to exploited and missing persons, Amber Alerts, and criminals, like add criminals on watch lists, right? So there are agencies that will put in our cameras, and they will only use those alerts. They will not share their network externally. They will not, share other networks internally, so on and so forth. More often than not, what we see is people will share, at least as a starting point, with jurisdictions nearby, folks that you're familiar with. So that's the most common use case, but absolutely you do not have to share, and it's a very common question. It's a great question. There is no, federal sharing, any of that nature. It is 100% up to you who you share with in your jurisdiction, who you research. You own all of that data.
All right, so real quick, Gwen asked who would make the decision on who we share with. That would be done by me. Beyond that, one of the things that, and I don't want to misspeak here, so correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but those audit trails that we're talking about, in this transparency portal. So let's just throw this out there. Let's say Stowe Police Department searches our cameras for something if we've shared with them. That goes on their transparency portal. That goes on their audit trails. So it's still there. It's still available. It's just not on ours. It's on theirs. Is that correct?
Jonathan, is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair.
So Kent residents through our portal wouldn't see outside agencies or our camera.
Correct. Not on our transparency portal.
A resident wouldn't be able to see if like a federal agency or an outside agency used our camera.
I think the best answer to that would be they would have to.
Just to clarify, you 100% determine who sees your license plate reading. So that is up to chief, that is up to the jurisdiction, that is up to the council and the board, whomever is determining it. You have to accept every share request. So in the example you're giving, which I absolutely appreciate and understand, you would actually have to receive a share request from a federal agency and then allow it for that to actually be the case.
So it's not like you share.
Correct. It's individual departments, yes.
Absolutely no, we have an agency in Massachusetts, transparently Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I'm from, that is very anti-sharing.
but they are coming on board because they want access to what I share, which is the one, the national database. And they want the ability, if an elderly resident within their community goes missing and they have dementia or Alzheimer's, they want to be able to run their plate and bring them home soon. If there's a child who is not, God forbid, kidnapped, but like, lost, or they want to be able to run the plates of those who they might be able to find them. That's the value they see in it. Not everyone chooses to do a broad network share. Some do, many don't.
So just to kind of piggyback off of that and kind of tell you kind of how I see it and where I would stand on that is similar to what he said at the beginning, that, sharing with other local agencies. So the best example to use for that is this. We know that some of the locations we want to put cameras are on West Main Street by Dietrich and on Fairchild by Newcomer. We know that Stowe has one on Kent Road on the other side of Dietrich and on Graham Road on the other side of Newcomer. Our cameras would point to capture cars coming into the city, our city. Their cameras point to capture cars going into their city. So for an investigative resource, we know that if we have a crime committed, let's say downtown, we could, if we share with Stowe and they share with us, we get our suspect vehicles leaving on Stowe's cameras. Does that make sense? So I would envision us sharing with our other local agencies, but especially early on, until we really get our footing with this and figure out what it all means, I would not envision us sharing broadly, if that makes sense.
Jerry? Yeah, Chief, kind of a question. I asked Dave this. There's legislation, and don't get me wrong, I think this is a great tool to, enhance your department. But there's legislation out there fighting license plate detectors, and I think they're referring to speeding. We're referring to something else. Down the road, is that going to affect us any?
So the current legislation that you're talking about is what's targeting the traffic cameras. Those are for enforcing civil traffic infractions. This has nothing to do with that. All this is doing is alerting us to vehicles that are on basically a federal hot sheet that there's an alert on that vehicle. So this has nothing to do with that particular legislation.
I just wonder, because they're talking about license plates.
Yeah.
All right.
Because that's what.
Well, I don't want to get involved in this, and by the end of the year we got to shut it down because of
right. So
legislation.
just to explain that, so what the traffic cameras you're talking about that are for speed enforcement, just like these, they're not taking a picture of the owner of a vehicle or the driver of a vehicle. They're taking a picture of a license plate, and that's why it's a civil penalty instead of a traffic infraction. So that's what those are. That's what that particular legislation is targeting, is people who are using for speed enforcement or red light enforcement cameras, stuff like that. That's what that legislation is targeting.
Okay, thank you.
Melissa?
Chief, I appreciate why this would be a great tool for you. I want to have a little sense of clarity of what you're asking for from us tonight, because I would like to move slowly on this so that we can get community an opportunity to input on this.
Okay, so I guess my ask tonight was to be able to move forward with an appropriation. Now, I don't say this to try to rush you in any way, shape, or form, but I think it's important for you all to know that there is some funding or some price differences depending on weighting. So one of the things, and I don't want to speak for Michael, but one of the things we know is if we get this approved this month, the entire implementation fee is waived. We don't have to pay that. If it's after this month, it could be possible, but he can't guarantee that to us.
Roger?
Yeah, curiously, the various turnpike systems using your camera technology, and the reason I ask is that when my E-ZPass did not register when I was on the West Virginia Turnpike, I got a little letter and I got a picture in the back of my car with the license plate number on it. And I think that that system, and I probably was speeding too, but that didn't matter, right? The fact of the matter is, though, is that the type of system we're looking at, where that it would have that clarity of the car and the picture
don't do speeding, and we definitely don't do
Yeah, I know.
traffic violations, but in terms of the clarity, I would actually say yes, but maybe even enhanced in a positive way. You know, Jonathan gave a great example where if somebody's a victim of a crime or something happens, oftentimes you don't get a perfect read of that license plate. You might get a very vague description of that vehicle. So I would say that from a technology standpoint, while we don't address those items, it's an enhancement off of that where if something bad happens, we're not reliant on just that license plate. We're able to, you know, capture a little bit more. But Jonathan, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I mean, it's just, this is, unlike a turnpike camera, this is, for criminal investigations, it's not for traffic enforcement.
Well, I guess what I was pointing out is that the turnpike camera wasn't for traffic enforcement. It was for going through an automated, Easy Pass system, and the Easy Pass was not picked up. And all it did was.
I've gotten a few of those myself when I'm traveling.
Yeah, so you understand.
That's not, we made a decision as an organization long ago, like, we're not, we get asked that frequently, actually. Many of my clients, my team spans, just for edification, but from Maryland through Ohio up to Maine. So I have a great deal of experience with a lot of agencies. We get asked all the time if we could do things like that, because frankly, it's an economic enforcer for a lot of jurisdictions, that they can do speed enforcement, traffic law enforcement. We choose to focus on quality of life and public safety. Those are really the two things that we like to hone in.
Thank you.
Heidi?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious how this works. Like, so somebody robs Best Buy or somewhere in Kent, and they have the description of Ford Fusion. Looks like a Ford Fusion, it's a blue compact car. So, do you take the date, the location, and look up all the blue Ford Fusions that went through that area at that date and possibly time? And then how do you decide, you know, then you get their license plates and you can see who they belong to. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the driver.
Correct.
Thing. But then how do you go about narrowing it down as far as probable cause is concerned to go and make an investigation and an arrest? Because are we going to be sweeping people up?
No, absolutely not. So what I would say is this: it gives you your starting point. If in the absence of a flock camera, let's bring this to Kent a little bit, I guess, just for clarity here. Let's say we have a theft from a downtown business. Somebody dines and dashes, and we know we have 4 flock cameras surrounding downtown. So whichever way that vehicle left, it would have been captured on a flock camera. We know that. Let's use the blue Ford Fusion. We know we have a window of 15 minutes to look at over 4 cameras. The likelihood of there being a vast number of blue Ford Fusions in that 15-minute window is very low. Even though that's a common car, it's still very low because you're looking at a very concentrated area, a small area in a small time window. So let's say we get 3. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look for, were there any identifying characteristics on the vehicle? Okay, was there a sticker on the windshield? Was there a dent on the back end of it? You know, anything like that. If there's an identifying characteristic, again, that's going to be caught in that camera, that picture on the camera. It's going to be captured there. Their system is intricate enough and it's detailed enough that you can actually search for cars with writing on the back window. I mean, it's that detailed. Or you can look for cars with bumper stickers or cars with, you know, decals in the back windshield. You can get that granular with it. So when we have that description, maybe we have surveillance video beyond just a description, so we can start to really narrow down. Let's say there's 3 initial cars and we're able to narrow that down to 1 or 2. Again, that's giving us a starting point in an investigation. It's not, you're right, it's not probable cause to make an arrest solely based on that. It's giving us a place to start that if we didn't have that camera, all we know is there's a blue Ford Fusion out there that committed a theft downtown, and there's 100,000 blue Ford Fusions in Ohio. That's a, you know, just a random number I threw out. But So we know that it's 1 out of 100,000 versus 1 out of 2.
Melissa? Were you done, Heidi? I'm sorry, Melissa.
So this question is for the Flock team. I want to make sure that we get the best economic advantage that we can, but I also want to make sure that our community has an opportunity to understand and ask the questions that are necessary. And so I've worked in sales a really long time. I want to understand, is your discount related to you have some kind of grant with a time frame, or this is just a promotion, and could we ask you to give us 60 days to do our due diligence and still have that great economic advantage?
Yeah, I mean, I actually have a slightly different train of thought if you all were game. I mean, look, we're very confident in the value we can bring to communities. We've had great success, not just nationally, but kind of in your backyard. We would be, more than happy to, that discount is take that, and I appreciate the sales background as well. What if we were to structure the agreement so that you actually had a trial period with an opportunity to remove from the agreement? So if after 30 or 60 days, the department and, you all don't see results from this technology, you can say, you know what, we're not seeing value from this. We're not getting license plate hits. It's not working out for us. We're not solving crimes. We'd be happy to come and put the technology in the ground, prove out the concept and the value of Flock to you all in your community, and give you that kind of piece where you can go back to your constituents and say, look, we made a bet on this, and here's the value that it's providing to all.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to, do that if that would, remove any, fears of the technology and maybe make it a little bit easier from a community communication standpoint.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that thought process, but that's not. I think it's pretty clear because so many other communities are using it effectively, and I have great confidence in Chief making a good decision about a good tool. My concern as a city council person is, how does our community feel about this? We know that we need to have buy-in in order for this to be accepted and for our community to feel comfortable about how this data is used and to what end. And you've been very clear about that, but our community needs to understand that as well. So that's my concern.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've done one of the things I like to communicate is because it is, putting a physical camera on the ground, permitting it, it's not a fast process. So the hypothetical I give folks is, if you were to sign an agreement tonight, which you're not, we're probably somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks out from those cameras actually even going in. So oftentimes what we have seen successful, and you all can discuss with the Flock team not in the room, if that's appropriate, would be if we were to do that, contract with a trial period termination clause, we could actually work with you, Jonathan, Michael, myself, and our extended team to actually do some community outreach. We could host office hours, we could come to community meetings, we could engage with community groups, explain what it is, explain what it's not, explain the value, very similar to what we've done tonight, and explain that we're going to run essentially a trial period of this technology. That's very, very common. We're more than happy to do it. We are not just a sell you technology and disappear vendor. We want to be a partner to the community. That's what's made Flock successful. So if that would help, we'd be more than happy to do that.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Further questions? Gwen?
I just have one last question. So the concern, at least that I have, that I feel like residents would have, is about the data and who owns the data. So I know that you had said that we own the data.
We own the data.
And that there are audits that are conducted. The audits are conducted by Flock,
by us.
outside auditors.
It would be by us. It would be by us within the police department. And much like they said, every single search in the system requires a reason. Part of our internal policy would be that reason has to include your case number. So we have to be able to definitively look at what you're investigating and why you looked up this specific vehicle. That's all part of an audit.
And then at the end of 30 days, the information was deleted?
Yeah, the information is stored for 30 days. Now, the caveat to that is obviously if we have an investigation and we have data that we get from the system as part of that investigation, we export it and save it in our case files. So under those circumstances, obviously we have to have it for court and things like that. So we can't get rid of that in 30 days.
No, that's, yeah, understood, yeah. It's not like a 23andMe where all your private information potentially.
Right.
Okay, just checking.
No.
Those are the questions
No.
I anticipate receiving from my.
So one of the things that I think is really important to point out in terms of the privacy and security of the system is and I'm not putting Nick on the spot, but so the Law Enforcement Automated Database and National Crime Information Center probably have some of the most stringent cybersecurity and network security protocols probably in the world. Okay, the fact that the National Crime Information Center trusts Flock and links to Flock, I know it's no small feat to be able to meet their cybersecurity requirements. I mean, the security of that data is just as secure as it's going to be in our hands with the protocols that the National Crime Information Center requires them to follow.
Heidi?
Yeah, I'm not seeing a cost on this. Is that something we're gonna see?
That was my next point.
Yeah, like
So-
maybe after this, if you have a draft agreement or something like that?
So we don't have a draft. Well, yeah, we do now. But I can tell you the cost. Actually, so my plan was tonight to kind of go over our local stuff and kind of give you an overview from my perspective of what the system is. Allow them to talk, and then my last point here is the financial side of it. So if there are no other questions about the platform, the program, and what it all is, I'm happy to go into the financials now.
Chief, could I go to the audience if anybody has any questions about what we...
Sure.
Anybody in the audience have any questions? Back to you, Chief.
Okay, so this came with a little bit of sticker shock. I won't hide from that. But so the cost, again, this is you lease the cameras, you don't own the cameras, and you're really paying for the software as a service on the back end side of this. So the cost is $3,000 per camera per year. The plan that we have developed with Flock is for 14 cameras, so the cost is $42,000 per year. Normally it's $650 per camera for an implementation fee year one. That's what I mentioned earlier, that Flock is willing to waive all of that. So that's over $9,000 that Flock is willing to waive in year one. So we're looking at a 3-year contract with Flock for $42,000 a year. One of the things I think Dave touched on this earlier is all this is paid for by state, local, and federal forfeiture monies from criminal apprehension activities. That money is specifically earmarked. It cannot be spent for anything other than law enforcement purposes, and specific to drug enforcement and criminal apprehension are really the purposes that money can be spent for.
Okay.
So I guess my request would be to just put this, finally wrap it up. My request is that we have the authorization to move forward and execute the contract with Flock Safety and the corresponding appropriation of funds for this year for that first year of the contract with Flock Safety.
With the suggestion, I would add on the suggestions that Flock offered, that it would have a clause that would give basically the first couple months, whatever that number of days is a trial period to get to Melissa's.
Yes.
So that we can hopefully get the benefit, it's best of both worlds. We get the lower price, but still if in 30 or 60 days later you're like, yeah, no, this is not going to work, we say thank you and there's no penalty, there's nothing.
Right.
Is that
I agree with that, and I think another important thing to
That's
point
what I
out
mean.
there
That's
too
the community,
is,
30 to 60 days of community
you know,
outreach.
obviously we have 2 weeks until the next council meeting
Yes.
where this would be finalized and we would be
100%.
able to execute a contract. And then beyond that, from the time we're able to sign a contract, it's going to be roughly 6 to 8 weeks before they can install and implement. So from tonight, it looks like we would have somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 weeks to gauge some of that community stuff that you're talking about. And with that caveat of, you know, having that trial period that we can opt out at any time.
Gwen?
Is it possible, sorry about that, is it possible also that there's be some way for either you to report or someone to let residents know other agencies that might have searched it? Like you know, like you can give permission to other municipalities to search it or potentially other agencies. Is it possible for you to report like who got to look at it? Maybe
So-
not by
so
individual cases, but just generally?
I do think that's possible, so long as they are so I guess I need to ask Flock the question. The transparency portal, is that required for every agency?
It's not a requirement, but we can absolutely enable you if that's something you would like.
Okay, because that's what I would say is, I'm not opposed to this at all. It would take me going into those other agencies' transparency portal, because I don't necessarily have access to their audit trail, because it's not my data, right?
But you would know because you're giving permission to the agencies to look at it, correct? So you could say, well, I let Mogador,
Yes,
Aurora.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So you could just, not the individual
Searches, but
searches,
who has access.
who has been allowed access.
Okay, yes, that's
Just
absolutely.
the entities that have been allowed access.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Roger?
Mr. Bowling, you're still in the audience here. When we put in our new signal, traffic, lights and all that, do we have any cameras attached to any of those to allow us to go in to change the signals or do anything like that?
Yeah, we do, but they're not nearly to the resolution that they're talking about.
Well, I understand, but there's still traffic cameras that
There
are up
is,
there.
yes.
The community has probably, maybe some didn't care and didn't notice, but
Since 2012.
yeah, we've had traffic cameras all over the city of Kent on those new signals that we put in. So this is nothing more than an enhanced version of that so we can read a license plate number. But it doesn't necessarily, the current cameras doesn't necessarily not allow you to see cars, specific cars going through already, correct?
Correct.
So all this is doing is just really enhancing that process that we already have in place.
I would like to state specifically to answer your question, because I've worked with that. The current cameras on those poles, they're live view only. They use them for analytics. There is
Correct.
no historical recording
Correct.
for the current.
Correct.
Okay, I did want to clarify that. There
Yeah,
is
but
no
I think that I-
historical, you couldn't go get that.
Yeah, I understand, but I think that the significant portion of that is that we already have cameras, and they're not intrusive, and they're there to help the community be able to navigate the morass of traffic that we get from time to time and change the signals. So I think that, the addition of these cameras, I don't see them as more of an intrusion than what we already have, in my opinion. But that's my opinion.
Melissa?
I have a question for Hope. If we decide to make a motion tonight that does not have the emergency clause, in 2 weeks when we meet for city council, could it be changed?
Yes, you could make an amendment on the floor.
Okay, because I would love to see some clarity. I'd love to see the contract. I want to see everything written out for myself before I vote on it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Anybody from the audience? Anybody more from council? Audience, back to council.
I'd like to move to authorize the purchase of the cameras.
I'll second that.
Go ahead, second.
Not we're not purchasing the cameras, right? We're purchasing the,
yes.
yeah.
The platform.
The platform, yeah.
Comments?
Yeah, just to clarify?
Yeah.
That it's not with emergency, did I hear that correctly? Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
I did.
Oh, Robin, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
No problem. Yeah, I get the concern expressed by some of the council people. Security aspects, what it'll be used for.
Robin,
So
I can't even hear you.
Yeah, I can barely hear you too.
You know?
I
There you go.
I apologize, I keep forgetting that. I certainly respect the concern expressed by some of the council people, but to me it seems like the chief has come here with a tool, not a significant overreach from what exists. A lot of aspects of concern are addressed by the limitations explained by the company and by the chief of how this will be used. In the interim, in law enforcement, time is of the essence in trying to get things in place. While we're going over things, something can happen that could have allowed us the opportunity to address a situation before it actually elevates to something which can be really disastrous in the community. I can appreciate trying to get input. This is not that situation. The mayor already explained the one time they were concerned about an issue which I can remember was before the courts to be addressed, that a lot of people were concerned about. This is simply a tool to help identify the possibility that crimes or other things have been committed that could put us in a better spot to proactively address those things. And I'm concerned that us going back and forth and having big public meetings and so on and so forth about this is just not worth, doesn't have the value that it normally would. I would hope that we would expedite it, allow the police to get a better tool in the toolbox so that they are safeguarding the interests of the community.
Okay. Heidi?
Yeah, I hate the fact that in this current climate, that I feel like we have to be suspicious. We have to do our due diligence and make sure that this cannot be abused. I do plan to vote for this because I do think it is a good tool. If it does show some measurable outcomes, I want to see, hopefully we'll be able to see that, we have more solved crimes. We can point to some examples going forward. Perhaps this will save on police time or something like that. It would really be good to see the benefits that come from this, and also make sure that we can show, like Gwen was saying, that we're sharing this judiciously and not, in a way that will confirm suspicions. So, yeah, I think with all the cautions and, it is a concerning time, but I do like the fact that we would be able to potentially reduce crime or at least solve crimes, because that's really, when you're a victim of crime, and they say, well, there's nothing we can do about it, there's 15,000 Ford Fusions, in this area. It's really, it's very frustrating and harmful to our society. So we have to balance all this. So I'm going to vote for this. I like the ideas that we put in place regarding the trial period, the opportunity to educate the public. If we do hear some concerns from the public, we can maybe offer an education session from the experts and from the chief. And I think that we're asking good questions, and sadly, these seem to be necessary questions.
Roger?
Yeah, I'm going to support it, but I want to point out that we have marketed ourselves. First of all, we have about 30,000 citizens, then you add our student citizenship, and so we have a significant number of people who live within confines of, let's say, the city of Kent. And we're welcoming people. I mean, we have people, we market ourselves as a destination city. If you look at all of the stuff that we put out, we encourage people from the outside to come to Kent, Ohio. I think that the community, and I may be wrong, but I think the community would appreciate the fact that we are giving our police one more tool to protect what we have here as a community, to help when we do have crowds. I mean, we have crowds coming into this community. We have cars coming in from outside. I am not worried about our police or anyone using that information just as as spying on someone or whatever. I am concerned, though, that I hear from citizens that they question sometimes when we have 25,000 additional people flocking into this city for the various things that go on. And those aren't people who live here. They aren't the people we embrace. You know, they're people we embrace as visitors, and we hope they all come with goodwill and everything. But on the other side of the coin, we need to be realistic. And I agree with Heidi that I understand the climate and the concerns, but we need to be realistic about protecting those 30,000 residents, give or take, and all of those students on that university that are within our city. So to me, I'm going to support it as another tool.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's all for.
Yep. Streets and sidewalks and utilities, Mr. Sidoti.
Oh, no. Okay.
Your turn to talk.
I've said enough, right? All right, we have to amend a street closure. All right, here we go. Amend a street closure request for Kent J.C.'s Craft Brew Fest, which will bring thousands of people downtown, right? And many of them from outside of Kent. You're on.
Yes, the Kent J.C.'s Craft Beer Fest is May 17th, and the footprint has been changed, which is why I'm here tonight. They have pulled it off of Main Street and extended it further north down to Brady on North Water Street. A couple of the businesses on that street had asked for it to be extended north so that they could be included in the footprint. And by removing it off of Main Street, obviously that supports initiatives that we've been trying to do with the new event. So I'm here to seek approval of that new footprint.
Any questions for Bridget? Seeing none from council, any questions from anyone in the audience? Seeing none from, were you raising your hand? No, yeah, no, okay. Seeing none from the audience, back to council.
Move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Any other comments? I know it's probably not protocol, but thank the J.C.'s for the consideration that they gave to the community, because we did spend a significant amount of time of looking at some of these things, so thank you. Yeah, all those in favor signify by saying yeah.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, we're adjourned. And if you feel like being on the Charter Review Commission,
Yeah, fill out the
work
blank.
in the morning.
Fill out the blank. Yeah, we should have passed out blank applications.
I'm just hoping it doesn't come back to bite us. But I thought it was, the reason I did sign this because I thought it was more informative than what.
A signature?
No business card from one of you.
Oh, I don't have my business card. There, all right, there we go. Jeff's got one. He'll
I'll
go.
put my name on it, right?
Yeah. I figured that.
I do.